Hi everyone, I'm Susan Mulvihill, and yep, I am back out in the vegetable garden. Today's topic is soil preparation, and you know, this is so important. I think it's completely ironic that the one thing that is the very foundation to our success in the garden is the thing that we either completely ignore or we forget all about it. But soil should be built up every single year. Now, I have all kinds of tips to share with you. And first, I want to start with an apology. If the audio is not so good in this video, I apologize. We have two new houses being built right outside my garden, and they are being very noisy. So I'm going to do the best I can. Hopefully they won't be making too much noise, but I do want to get this information to you because it's very timely. Don't work with your soil when it is too wet. You will destroy the structure of the soil and you'll end up with a garden full of dirt clods for the entire season. Ask me how I know this. Many years ago, I got excited. I wanted to get things going. It was too early. My soil was too wet, and I absolutely ruined it for the entire year. So I'm trying to save you from making that mistake. Now, cool season crops typically are planted early in the spring as soon as the soil can be worked. But what does that mean? Well, there's an easy test you can do. You just grab a handful of soil, you press it together, and then you try to poke it apart with your finger. You'll notice this is not really going much of anywhere. It's too wet, and of course it rained all weekend, so I'm not surprised. If, however, your soil can easily be poked apart, it's nice and crumbly, then it's okay to work with it. Be gentle with your soil. You know, a lot of us were brought up thinking we needed to either rototill our soil or to turn it over with a shovel. And actually, it's not a good idea. That's because soil has a structure with layers in it, and at the different layers are different types of beneficial microorganisms and critters like earthworms that are doing wonderful things in the soil and for the plants that will be growing in each bed. So you do not want to do that, and it's not necessary. The other thing is, if you turn over your soil, you're bringing weed seeds up to the surface, and that's not a good idea unless you really like to weed. Now I'm going to show you how I loosen the soil in my beds with a minimal amount of work and a minimal amount of disturbance to the soil. This is my trusty spading fork. I love this tool. It's very handy. And all I do is I slip it down into the soil, I wiggle it back and forth a little bit, I lift it out, put it back in a few inches away, wiggle it, and so on. This is so much easier on our bodies than using a shovel to turn the soil over or using a rototiller. Now this works really well for planting seedlings. If you want to prepare a seed bed, it would be perfectly fine to loosen the top couple of inches of soil. Compost is absolutely the best amendment you can add to your soil. In addition to feeding your plants, it does two important things for problem soils. If you have sandy soil, it adds to the structure so that the water does not go running right through it. If you have clay soil, it breaks up those heavy particles so that the soil does not become waterlogged. Now, you don't have to mix it into the soil. Remember, we're being kind to the soil. All you have to do is in early spring and early fall, you just add about an inch to the surface of your bed. That is it. Easy peasy and really easy on your back. Now, if you don't have your own compost set up, which I hardly recommend you do, you can always find compost at garden centers and through some landscape supply companies. Organic is absolutely the best to go with. If you're wondering about adding manures into your soil, be aware of the fact that they are very high in nitrogen, so they can burn the plants. That means you should add in just small quantities if you feel the need. Now, chicken and rabbit manure would be the best kinds to use. It's important that you know that steer and horse manure can contain persistent herbicides that do not break down as they digest it. So I would avoid them just to be on the safe side unless you absolutely know where everything came from. If you take good care of your soil every year, you shouldn't need to add in any fertilizers at all. But if you do feel you need some, do not buy synthetic fertilizers, buy organic ones. So for example, bone meal would be an organic soil amendment that is high in phosphorus. And so that would be a great option if that is what you're looking for. Don't plant the same crops or the same families of crops in the same spot in your garden year after year after year, because that will continually deplete your soil and your plants will really struggle. Instead, you want to rotate your crops. Now, in the second video I shot in this series, which you can find on my YouTube channel, I talked about crop rotation. So if you missed it, you can check it out, or you can review it if you've already seen it, and then you will understand how to rotate your crops. It's not hard, and it's an easy but very effective tool. Anytime a bed is going to be idle for the rest of the season, sow cover crops. You can find cover crop seeds at garden centers, and the most common types are field peas, rye, and buckwheat. Legume seeds like field peas fix nitrogen in the soil, making it available to your next crop. Let the cover crops grow until the following spring, then chop down the foliage and add it to the soil. If you have been doing all of the things I've mentioned and your garden is still struggling, consider having your soil tested. Here in Spokane, our County Conservation District does testing, and it costs about $30. You can also purchase a soil test kit at a garden center. Simple soil tests will tell you the pH of your soil as well as the amounts of nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium available. Most vegetables will grow in pH values between 6.0 and 7.0. Well, I think that about covers it. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll meet you back here next week.